Hi, I'm Cathy, and we're going to do some more bird paintings today. I'm going to start with some examples. I think these are the same examples you saw last week that are for reference material. And the reference material, you can go to books, you can look at on the internet, because birds, Audubon, the terrible thing about that we all say, Audubon had to go out and shoot his birds. But back in the 1800s when that was done, we didn't think that was not thought of as a negative thing at all. Obviously, to be able to study a bird, it was nice to have the bird as your reference. And what we have now is great photography and photographers who can take bird photos. So we have a composition here of two birds together, and we have a composition of doves right here. So I did a quick couple of sketches thinking about if I did the two birds on the branch, they're looking away from each other, could I do them in a vertical format, or would I do them in a horizontal format? So then I thought about the composition. I didn't like this one, where the two birds were not really connected, as these two are looking away, but they seem connected. These two are looking away, but they have an opposite effect. So I made a composition of two birds, and I actually turned this into an acrylic painting where one is looking in two different directions, but they have a relationship because of the overlap of the branch and that sort of thing. And then I looked again at this simple little design of the two doves and the reflection in the water and thought, yes, that's kind of nice. So then I went to my Cardinal. Now, I have two watercolor paintings that I plan to work on. And the first one is the Cardinal from the book that had bird photos of cardinals. And I went ahead and painted both of these using a lot of dry brush over the wet body. After the wet body first layer dried, this is the male and the female, and I sort of made up my branches, and I made both of them looking in two different in the same direction, but in different placements to give a sense of balance to the design. So my other design that I'm going to work on is that I went ahead and started washing the background, but I have that one layer done, and I've just put down a little bit of blue so that I can use my reference of birds for this one and do a completion there. So let me start with this one, because I'm making this one up, and I'm going to wet the background, which does unfortunately take a little bit of time. The birds are finished, and that's how I would have started this one. Sometimes we go, do we do the background first, or we do? Now, I could have left this as a study in white and just painted the branches. But I want to play with that idea of wet and wet backgrounds. So I'll do that with both paintings and then finish the birds in the other one. And hopefully you still get the idea of when we painted birds last week, we were dealing with one bird as a study. Today, I just want us to think about composing our pages and also just having fun with painting birds in general. And you don't have to paint two if you prefer to go with one. We're still looking at how the branch or any prop. Now I was going to leave the branches, and then I changed my mind down here. I'm just going to paint over them. I wanted to leave a little light maybe across that branch, so maybe that's my reason for leaving it out. So I'm wetting everything on my page around the birds. And I also wanted to work with the idea, these two thoughts. I'm going to say as I work, positive and negative spaces, contrast, darks and lights, complementary colors. So if I'm using complementary colors and I have a red bird and I have an orange bird, then my blue-green is going to have to be my choice of background. So on my palette, I'm going to be working with blues and greens, and I'm going to make lots of, well, that's going to be way too bright. Lots of blues and greens to work with, and then I'll dilute, since this is going into my background of water. And maybe I focus more on the blues next to, boy, that's too bright. Wow, it's beautiful color though, isn't it? Let me see here. How can I calm this down? Well, water will do the trick. And because it's out of focus, it's going to read as sky. It's also going to read as tree leaves in my background. And when it gets too heavy, I tend to wet my brush and just move it around. And next to that beak of orange, I would like to have a little more blue in here. I don't hesitate to move my, oh, so sorry. I guess you could tell I dropped my camera. Okay, let's see. Now I'm putting a little more blue into blues and greens. I keep telling myself, all right, what goes on the other side of this branch should be repeated over here. Well, that's really pretty color. I don't know if it's going to make sense as the background, but yes, I think it will. And now I'm definitely thinking about my greens in this, next to my red, this beautiful Cardinal. I haven't painted the feet. Now I'll have to come back and put them in. And I need to be a little more careful, especially if I want to keep some light on that branch. So anytime I go behind one shape, I want to bring that, same color. So the branches are going to be gray-brown. If you look at tree limbs, they're really, we often think of them as brown, but in reality, they're more gray. Okay, again, whatever's on the other side of this branch has got to be repeated. And I want to go a little heavier at the bottom. This should be the darker at the bottom, because probably sky is filtering through at the top. It's just my thinking. So I have controlled my bird painting, but I have gone very creative, very loose with my water and my greens in this background. But the contrast is definitely there. The contrast is there because of the blue-green and the red-orange. And so while this is still wet, I want to suggest that there are, and my apologies, because now I have to hold this. The background has leaves, and while this is wet, I don't know if I may have to let it dry just a minute. That's why working on 2 paintings today is going to be helpful. I have these little small branches running through here. I have this main branch. I have a few suggested things that I want to put in that are making it look like specific leaves. So I'm going to see if this begins to work. Those of you who've done some painting with oriental brush, you know that it's about the technique of putting down your brush And with the technique of kind of like a bamboo shoot, you are suggesting these leaves. And I'm using a lighter green, middle green. I would say it's not real light because it is showing up. And technically I should be smaller up here and larger down here. This is a little too wet to really get that effect. But already you can begin to see that there are leaf shapes. They're blurry leaf shapes, but they're in this wet and wet pattern. Okay, so I think I have to let this dry a little bit more. I obviously can't paint my trunks or my feet, but that is how I would handle that background. Okay, I missed a few little spots here. I like the fact that I would see a little green here underneath this body, and I wouldn't have that white right there. Okay. So, other than maybe, I'm trying to see if I'm dry enough anywhere yet, but I don't think I am. I'll watch this. I'll put this off to the side, and I'll watch and see if I am able to add a few more leaves. All right, in order to finish painting these two birds, I'm going to have my reference handy. And my reference, I'll place here. And that's so that I can see my two little guys here and how I'm going to finish painting them. Now, this background I want to add a little detail to. I've already put in a bit of a wash. So I got to clean a spot very quickly because I've got green everywhere. And this is an orange and blue background. Orange and blue because orange and blue make up my birds. I think first, however, I'm going to look at my birds one more time, and I'm going to complete them before I work on the background. And because I've already put in a layer that I have allowed to dry, I can put in now the darks, and I'm using my cobalt blue. There is the wings, and sometimes I use my flat brush like I'm using it here, and sometimes I have to use the little round brush to get in these little small places. Both of they're like twins sitting here, and I love this little composition. Very, very becoming. And I want to soften the edges of what I've just done, and I see a bit of orange mingling here. So I'm going to take my water on my brush and just soften this up where the orange is going to mingle into it. And right here, this is a little light spot on the top of his head. So I'm going to keep that little light spot and soften this edge. I'm actually picking up some more blue here to darken this a bit more. And coming around, this is where I see the orange mingling in. And just putting that bit of dark now is creating the more shadow and sense of the body of the bird, the wings and the feathers. Some of you did such a nice job with adding the detail on your feathers. So that's to be kept in mind as you work. Here, what I want to do is go ahead and paint these faces while I have the orange on my brush. I need a magnifying glass. My photo reference is so tiny. Sometimes, and there's a little mingling here, and that makes it darker. And the beak while I'm at it. It's just, I'm using my orange rather than mixing. And just happen to have a nice bright orange. It could be your yellow, and sometimes I like to put my little bit of red in there when I'm mixing, just to shadow and make something pop a little bit more. And I think that red sort of helps right here. The eyeball, it's going to come back with some black. Well, I might as well get this guy's eye done. And there's a little more light and shadow on this face. In fact, I wish I could lift. I think I want to lift just a little right there. Yeah, so it's not quite all the same. And here, again, the beak is orange. So I do everything in stages of looking at my reference and thinking about my composition. And I erase, yes, I erase until I get, but I leave my pencil lines. I also think about this, the way these branches help to divide the space and make this look good. Let's put a little water here. And this looks like it could use a touch of yellow. And just soften that up because I sensed, I'm just sort of trying to soften that hard line that I made. Okay, and there was some yellow here, yellow orange in the bottom of these little bird bellies. And then they become more gray. They're not white, they look light. So I don't want to lose, there's almost a little dry brush to this breast here. Oh, and I forgot to put my darker blue over there. Okay, and then we've got to go darker blue on the tail. So to finish up the bird body, let me get that dark blue going. It's almost a purple. It's almost a royal blue feeling, gray blue even. All right, so it's working that I'm using a little dry brush here. Sometimes you just interpret as you go along. I just added water to soften that dry brush. Sometimes I just scrub with wiggle my brush to do what I want it to do. It has, I don't know if you can still see my reference or not. Doggone. Hopefully you can still see this reference. It's very purple gray, and my birds are a little bit bluer than the photo reference, but it's just how I'm interpreting them. Maybe I could go a little more purple. I'm thinking of that right now, but maybe I'm going to stick to the blue. I guess if I want to make it a little more purple, I just introduce a hit of red. It's sort of your mind as you're painting, you ask yourself, now wait a minute, I'm painting this blue and it's really not blue? At least I do that. I talk to myself and say, well, wait a minute. Here in my head, I saw blue, and now I don't see blue anymore. I see more purple. Well, it may have a touch more purple now, but I'm sticking with my blue. And now I have this dark gray, and I'm trying to get back toward the blue look. Okay. Now I've got a dark color, but it is shadowed down here with this tip of the tail. And I'm going to darken that. And this tail, wow, I've almost changed my color. Well, I have, and it's beautiful. So I might need to mingle that blue and soften out my edges. Let's see here. That seems to have, whenever you add orange, you're going to be dulling the color. And I sensed a little touch of that orange in the bottom of this tail feather. Now, this feather, the feathers of the bird tail are not quite as dark. And again, my reference is just guiding me. And this is kind of what I see. So I've added water to complete what I see here. And this is the bottom of the bird belly. And I think in my drawing I was a little off because the feet are really down here with a bit of a shadow that's going on right where this belly is touching the branch. So I saw that. It's really a little further down here, but dry brushing to this side to give that bird a little more. Okay, let's get back on here. I see again a little shadow that's happening here. Too much. So I dabbed my brush on a paper towel and brought it back to the painting. And this sort of says feathers on the breast. And I haven't dealt with my background yet, but I need to do that. And I need to do my little bird beak. I'm going to use this nice dark blue that I had with a touch of orange, which is going to give me a bit of a black. And these little eyes, I want to keep that little white spot. So sometimes I move away from it and don't touch it again once I have the white spot. And I don't want to lose it. I might put a little more dark on it. Pretty sure I will, but to keep it safe right at the moment, my little talons here, the little claws that are clutching, have dark shadows and they appear to be orange brown. Sometimes these claws have the center one is longer, and I need a magnifying glass to get that exactly right. And my trunk, I'm working with my same blue orange because complements always work. The complement blue and orange in this particular painting is pretty much all I've used. And then giving that the limb, the branch, its contrast, I work that dry brush. I don't know why I haven't gotten back to the background, but it was on my brush and I just did it. Okay, I have to add a little orange to those claws. And okay. And keeping that stem, I have to ask myself, is that branch strong enough to hold two birds? Maybe I do need to listen to my own advice sometimes, and that might need to be a little heavier here so that that limb is really supporting those two birds. Now, I could leave this like it is, but I wanted to show you because, let me go back to this one real quick. This one has dried. No, it's still pretty darn wet. Whether or not, and I will do something similar with the branches here, but I think that's too wet. So if I wanted to go back and show you these leaves that I would do, and you know, see, this is still a little fuzzy, so it has a feeling of being in the distance. Do all these branches need to come on, all these leaves need to be coming off a branch? Not necessarily, because this is foliage in the background. I pretty much lost, except for over here, some of the feeling of these leaves. And this is soft and hopefully not interfering. Now I don't like that. Okay, well, that looks better. Put it on, take it off. It actually looked better when I removed it. Okay. I'm going to leave that and I want to have some things over here. And I do like what happened here. So sort of liked it. And these, yes, I do like it, but I don't want them to show up too much. All right, so that might be all I do besides putting the branches in. All right, and that has to dry. Here, I wanted to show you that what you could do here is very, very loosely, and I'm going to take that orange again. I've mixed a little bit of my bumblebee yellow, and I wanted to suggest, I have drawn in the background, which I doubt you can see, some suggestions of some leaves. This also could be branches that are just lightly sketched in. And what it does is it helps the feeling of the environment for these birds. Now, just putting in a few. So you've seen that you can do it wet and wet. Sometimes it works pretty good. You can also do it wet on dry. I don't know what that is. Okay. Again, this is the orange complement to blue. And now I'm just having fun. And wow, that kind of works, doesn't it? It's kind of nice, just having, and I had another branch here, which maybe I'll darken. Yeah, that's not too bad. And another, a blue branch every now and then might not be too bad. Okay, I think I better stop while I'm ahead. And I hope you were able to see the painting completely. I apologize for my camera work today, but if you are okay, I think that we're going to call this one done and the Cardinals almost done. All righty?